It is day 194 of the second Trump administration, and it was not a good day for the Trump economy. On Wall Street, the Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ all lost more than a full percentage point. The sell-off comes after Trump rolled out a list of new tariff rates on countries that haven't reached trade deals with the U.S. Those new rates take effect 1 week from today. But the big headline, the real story, was the labor market. Economists were set to see a weak July jobs report today, but it was even worse than expected. It was so bad that Donald Trump immediately found someone to fire. The U.S. added just 73,000 jobs in July, but the report also revised the numbers for the previous 2 months. The original job number for that period was 291,000 jobs. According to the new revisions, only 19,000 jobs were actually added. That means that the job market over the last 3 months is the weakest it's been since the beginning of the pandemic. And that is what apparently led Donald Trump to turn and shoot the messenger just hours after the report came out. Trump posted that he was moving to fire the Commissioner of Labor Statistics because she was appointed by former President Biden. He also wrote, without a shred of evidence, that he believes the job numbers were rigged to make him look bad. Trump talked about the firing before getting out of Washington for the weekend.
I've always had a problem with these numbers. You know, I was thinking about it this morning. Before the numbers that came out, I said, who is the person that does these numbers? And then they gave me stats about before the election. I had a similar problem. I mean, she gave out numbers that were so good for the Democrats. It was like unbelievable. And then right after the election, she corrected those numbers with, I think, almost 900,000 corrections. I think nobody had ever seen anything like it. Well, today she did the same thing with the 253,000, whatever the number was. No, we need people that we can trust.
And former officials at the Department of Labor are sounding the alarm about this move. Egan Reich worked there from 2010 until earlier this year under presidents of both parties. He said, quote, "It's an absolute betrayal of every single person at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, whose integrity and forthrightness created the kind of stable business environment that earned a lot of people tremendous amounts of money." And Julie Su, former labor secretary under President Biden, called the move outrageous and said, quote, "Donald Trump hates facts, so he blames truth tellers." And with that, let's bring in our panel to get things going. Kayla Gardner, White House correspondent for Bloomberg, Ron Insana, CNBC senior analyst, and Natasha Sarin, former Treasury official and Yale law professor. Ron, I want to start with you. The entire time I was talking, I could see you shaking your head over there in the corner. So these numbers, they've rattled Wall Street, the stock market. They've raised fears for some of a recession. And now we have this firing. Where are we headed?
So I think the firing is actually a bigger deal than the numbers themselves. I mean, when you average what we've seen so far this year, we're adding about 80,000 jobs a month. That is half the pace that we saw in 2024. It's a third of the pace that we saw in 2023. It's not recession territory yet. Recessions, usually you see job losses on a month-to-month basis of 100, 200, 300,000, as we've seen in prior periods. This is a slowing economy that's growing about 1.2%. Inflation's holding about 3%. But the firing of the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics is, I think, a bigger story than most people at home might realize. When you start to tamper with the technocrats, the bureaucrats, the lifelong career employees in the government who are putting together these statistics truthfully and honestly and giving us the best assessment of where the economy is right now, on which policy decisions are made, investment decisions are made, and purchase decisions are made. When you start to tamper with that process, you run the risk of creating more problems than you are presumably trying to solve.
Natasha, do you see this as political interference?
You know, I am similarly as concerned as Ron, and I will say I agree with President Trump on one thing in that little intro you played. It is incredibly important for us to be able to trust the validity of government data. And until today, I think we all should have been celebrating the fact that our government data is this gold standard. It is the envy of the world that we are able to look to these statistics that give us truth and do so in this rapid response way where we're being able to understand shifts in the labor market and how the world is evolving as it is evolving in real time. That informs policymakers, that informs industry, and that informs the general public. The risk that we are taking today is that we are pushing towards a degree of political interference in this data collection that is going to fundamentally undermine the trust that we have in government. And it's not just about the BLS. It is about everything that the government does. It is about the politicization of the Federal Reserve. It is about so many of these bedrocks of the American economy that make us feel confident that we are, in fact, the strongest and greatest economy of the world. And all of that is teetering in ways that are deeply dangerous at this moment. And I'm just so disappointed and disheartened.
Kayla, I'm curious how you see this development fitting into the president's recent comments about Fed Chair Jerome Powell. And then also just sort of if you see this as part of a broader story that has been bubbling in a number of agencies, I guess from this one to, say, the CDC, about the administration making major changes to federal data sets, in some cases just completely removing information that researchers of all kinds have depended on federal websites. How do you see this as part of a larger story of this administration?
Well, what was so interesting about the way that President Trump was talking about this decision today with reporters is he mentioned, I don't know who this person is. Who is the person who puts out these job data numbers every month? And we now know who that person is because they've been ousted, the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But the American public doesn't know these people because you're not supposed to. They're supposed to be civil servants. They're supposed to be people that are behind the scenes, that are not political. And yet President Trump made this move after weaker than expected job numbers. But what's so ironic about these numbers is they are the kind of numbers that should compel the Fed to really lower interest rates. And so that is really ironic about the move that he's taken here. And yet we've seen the president, again, ramp up some of his rhetoric about Powell after it seemed like last week he was really letting go of this narrative. But now he's again calling for the Fed chair to resign. He says that he has no plans to fire him. He said specifically that he's worried about the market reaction, that it would disturb markets. He said that today in an interview. But he is, again, ramping up that rhetoric to really push Fed Chair Jerome Powell to leave.
Ron, what happens in countries where their leaders are able to exert this kind of political pressure on the central bank, on, statisticians like this one?
Well, usually the word we would use is hyperinflation. I mean, that's basically what you could count on.
Doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't sound good at all. What happens is that the numbers become untrustworthy, policy decisions are made in error, and in some instances, with the president pressuring the Federal Reserve, and he now has a new Federal Reserve position to appoint since one governor resigned today. If you pack the Fed with people who are willing to do your bidding and lower interest rates, even when it's unwarranted, and it may be warranted modestly now. We don't know, given the jobs data that we got this morning, whether or not the Fed should cut in September. But if they were to aggressively cut interest rates, as he suggested recently, by 3 full percentage points to lower the cost of federal borrowing, that would result in hyperinflation. And if you look at Venezuela, if you look at Turkey, if you look at a wide variety of countries whose central banks aren't independent and whose data are played with by politicians, the outcome has always been bad for the population.
One of the things I noticed in some of the reporting on this today is that it looks like the one area in which some jobs were actually added was the healthcare sector. What does that signal to you, Natasha? Is that a good sign? Is it a bad sign that that's the only area in which we saw some amount of growth?
What's really interesting is actually until today, there was a bit of a puzzle, I think, in the economy with respect to the fact that GDP has been slowing over the first half of this year. If you compare it to where projections were last year, they were supposed to be in the 2.5% range. We're at below 1.5% for the first 6 months of this year. And yet the labor market was looking strong. It looked like the labor market was sort of chugging along as expected. And those two things didn't exactly make sense. They were in some tension with each other. And now we know why they were in some tension with each other. By the way, what your viewers should understand is revising these numbers, that happens all the time. That is sort of standard because we are trying to collect this data in real time and surveying all these businesses to try to learn something about the nature of how they're filling roles and the nature of what their labor market outcomes are actually looking like. Importantly, though, this information about how the labor market is cooling has come to us at a moment when we also got an inflation print that is telling us that tariffs are really starting to bite tight in this economy in exactly those sectors where these tariff rates are hitting the most, the durable goods, the furniture, the consumer electronics. You're seeing price increases over the first 6 months of this year that are higher than anything you've seen in the last 4 decades outside of the pandemic. So the Fed actually has a really challenging job to do to navigate these two things, because on the one hand, inflation is going up, and on the other hand, the labor market is cooling, and those push in different directions.
And just more directly with respect to healthcare, Antonio, this is the one area in which we have a labor shortage. Right, we have a shortage of nurses. We have fewer doctors who are applying for medical school and graduating, and so it's an area where the jobs are being added because we need them, and it's the one area.
And we have an aging generation,
aging population. Yeah, so there is some strength there, and that's been true now for several years in a row. But we're losing jobs in manufacturing. We're losing jobs in government. There are 154,000 government workers who have been furloughed, and are being paid their severance through September. They may apply for unemployment insurance come the fall, and that's going to make the labor market look dramatically different than it does today.
Is there a world in which the mass deportation campaign from the same administration is playing a role in
affecting
these numbers?
the labor market, size of the labor market shrinking, right?
It certainly is. And in part, actually, that's a little bit of the story of what you're seeing, I think, is that the labor market is actually reflecting the fact that some of the trends in immigration that we were expecting in the economy just aren't coming to play in a world in which we're talking about mass deportations rather than immigration.